Hey friends, hope you're well. My name is 𝗵𝗲𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵 and this is our virtual vitality cooking class, and on today's walkthrough we're doing zucchini carrot muffins. Super pumped about it. I don't know about you, but it's probably hot where you are right now. We're in the middle of August. So if you decide, you know what, I love the recipe, it looks amazingly good, I'm gonna make it tonight, totally fine. Great thing is with these videos, we keep them here in the Facebook event, but then we also pop them onto YouTube. So you want to check out the 𝗂𝐿𝐼 Excellence YouTube channel, and all the different recipes are there along with some fun smoothie recipes as well. So without further ado, we're going to hop into making some zucchini carrot muffins. If you're not much of a baker, not much of a cook, and you're going, I'm willing to try this, but you got to walk me through, no worries. That's part of why this is set up the way it is. So I'm going to give you a walkthrough step by step of how to take these ingredients and make muffins from scratch. No box at all, okay? So you already have the shopping list in terms of items to purchase, so just make sure you have all those ingredients ready to rock, and you're good to go. A couple quick notes on the items that were on the grocery list. So there was baking powder. As best as you can, you want to make sure to get aluminum-free baking powder. This is one of those little hidden gems, if you will, where most baking powder is either one, partially included with genetically engineered ingredients, not cool, or two, it has some sort of sodium aluminum ingredient in it. So it has aluminum in the actual baking powder, baking soda, which is so not good for your system. Hey, Janelle. So anything we can do to eliminate aluminum, whether it be with our deodorants, antiperspirants, switching that out, things that we cook with, our actual cookware, we always want to make sure to do what we can to keep ourselves as well as possible. And aluminum is a huge one. So just quick lesson for you, if you're doing this on the replay and you're picking up baking powder, this is one of the few that I know of that's going to be aluminum free. It's going to say it right on there that it's aluminum free, so that's the kind that you want to use. The other piece is that, I'll move these bowls off to the side for a moment. If you are working with fresh ingredients like your zucchini and your carrot, it's always a great idea to wash them first. And so when we wash our veggies, we're using the 𝗵𝗐𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐵 fruit and veggie soak. Fun fact about fruit and veggie soak, it's actually a combination, or includes a combination of 3 different essential oil blends, as thieves, purification, and digest. So it's helping to clean, it's helping to purify, and it's also helping to protect and help your digestive system by cleaning all that stuff off of your veggies. Organic produce or not, you definitely want to do it. So I'm going to wash up my zucchini here before we get started, just so you can see this process. In this little container, I have maybe about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of the veggie soak, and then the rest is water. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it around the wash. What's that? Okay. When you're done, you'll want to rinse it off with some water so you can just get that kind of worked off residue off of your veggies. And if I'm not mistaken, here in the last, week or two, I think the Environmental Working Group released their Dirty Dozen Clean 15 list. And so that's a great list to refer to if you're thinking about switching out to more organic produce. Hey! If only because for many it may be difficult to go completely organic, whether it's access to organic produce or even just having the budget for it. But the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen gives you a great place to start, just so you have something as a benchmark, a starting point, right? So, for example, when we purchase things like spinach, we're going to purchase that organic because that is very, very easily covered in pesticides. Same thing with apples and grapes. We want to keep those guys in the organic container and then just wash them. And then you have others like bananas, where it doesn't tend to have as much pesticide residue in the actual fruit itself. So bananas and avocados, I remember offhand, is 2 good ones. So I washed these guys. I'm going to rinse them off and come right back. There we go. And that's it. So now that I have these cleaned veggies, and it does make a difference, by the way. If you've not seen a good broccoli cleaning video with the 𝗵𝗐𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐵 fruit and veggie soak, it really does make a difference. So now we have these guys cleaned off. We're going to go ahead and cut them up to get them grated. So if you're not familiar with the process of grating, you can either get a grater. It has just kind of a flat face, and you would run your veggies over it. I have one of those, and I tend to catch my fingers on it. I'm just being honest. So what I prefer doing is, since we do a bit of baking and cooking here, is to go ahead and use a slicer shredder. So I just have the old school salad shooter by Presto. Hands up if you remember this guy, salad shooter and the Fry Daddy by Presto. Good stuff. So we have the salad shooter, and that's what we're going to be using to grate up the zucchini. Okay. When you're preparing your zucchini, you want to cut off the top where it had this this gourd growing head, so you're going to cut that off. And then the same thing with the end, you're going to cut that off. And then at this point, if we're going to feed it through some sort of a grating or shredding device, you just go ahead, and I like to cut it into either halves or quarters, just so that it makes it a little bit easier to go in. Okay. Cool. So for now, I'm just going to put these guys off to the side, because we're going to get to a little bit later in terms of grating everything up. I just want to make sure that you saw what that looked like in terms of prep up front. Okay. So with regards to utensils, that's right, because you may be wondering, what kind of utensils will I need? You want to make sure you have 2 bowls. You're going to have 1 bowl for your dry ingredients and 1 bowl for your wet ingredients. And then you're also going to need a muffin tin. I'll grab that over here so you can see it. Nothing fancy, so one of those muffin tin cupcake pan things. Okay, so we've got one of those. I prefer to use liners in these because, as far as I know, I don't have a magnet nearby. I think this might be aluminum. They may make some stainless steel ones. I know you can also get stone ones. But yeah, so I just ended up grabbing these, and I just put a cupcake liner in it, and that tends to work pretty well. So got that. And then you'll also want to have, thank you very much, and then you'll also want to make sure you have a whisk, because we're going to be whisking some of our ingredients. If you are completely plant-based, you can use a flax egg or egg replacer in place of the eggs that we'll be using in this recipe. Same amazing results. It's really, really good. And let's see, I think that about does it in terms of tools. So yeah, make sure you have your 2 bowls, your whisk, your muffin pans, and of course your measuring cups. Always very helpful. Okay, so let's get to business. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put all of our dry ingredients in our first bowl. I like to put it in my largest bowl. Okay, nope. Just kidding. Swap that around. Take it back, swap it around. I'm going to do my wet ingredients in my largest bowl. Sorry about that. So with my wet ingredients, that's going to include things like eggs, sugar, vanilla, oil. Now, when we pick up our eggs, we're getting them from a local farmer, so that way we know that they are humanely taken care of. And these are farmers who are dear friends of ours. That's really, really important for us in terms of when we're eating things that are in any way, shape, or form meat-based. So I want to make sure to keep it super clean. And so for this recipe, we're going to use 3 eggs. There we go. There's 3. Boom. All right. And then we're also going to add in some sugar and our vanilla. So fun thing about the sugar. Here we go. When you're using sugars, we prefer using sugars that are going to be unrefined because it has one, a lower glycemic index, which means it's going to burn more smoothly through your system versus cane sugar, which tends to make it spike. But then these are also what we would call clean sugars. So they're going to be as true to form to the original plant or tree or whatnot that it's coming from. Okay. So in this case, we're going to be using our organic maple syrup. Okay, we're going to use 3/4 cup of organic maple syrup, and we're also going to be using a 3/4 cup set of coconut sugar. So we'll go ahead and measure those guys in. When you are working with a recipe that calls for things like white sugar, brown sugar, you want to just gauge it in terms of, there you go, in terms of how you want to balance out your maple syrup and your coconut sugar. I like to go a little bit more heavy on my coconut sugar than my maple syrup if it's something that's really kind of doughy, versus having it more half and half or even more maple syrup if it tends to be more liquidy, if that makes sense. So with this, we're going to just make it nice and balanced, half and half, and it'll work out just fine. So it's 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then doing the same thing with our maple syrup. So if you're watching this on Facebook, I'd love to know, and if you're watching it on replay on YouTube, I'd love to know if with maple syrup, some different ways that you use maple syrup. The first time I was introduced to maple syrup was when I was doing a master cleanse many, many moons ago. And that was back when they still had things like grade A and grade B maple syrup. Now everything is grade A. But it was a really, really great way to act as a cleanser for the system. You would combine maple syrup with, let's see, lemon juice and cayenne pepper. And what was the other thing you had? You had maple syrup, lemon juice, cayenne pepper, and then purified distilled water. I think those were your ones that you were working with. And you were drinking that all day, every day for quite some time. It was at least 3 to 10 days. It was intense. But maple syrup, we don't really use it that way as much anymore. But I think it would be good to do a good detox cleanse again. All right, so I've got my eggs, I've got my sugar, and now I've got my vanilla extract. You want to get pure vanilla extract versus imitation. The whole point of us doing this process of cooking is that we want to keep things, again, as clean as possible. So that is always our goal. It looks like, yeah. So for your vanilla extract, you're going to use a teaspoon. I've got a 1/4 teaspoon here, so I'm going to use 4 of them. Here we go, 3 and 4. Awesome. Good. Okay. Now, since this is our wet set, and we're talking about using our Vitality oil, which in this case, the showcase one is Nutmeg Vitality. Here it is. Okay. We want to make sure that we're going to add it to our wets, okay, versus adding it to the dries. That way it has a chance to be incorporated in everything. We can whisk it together and we're good to go. So for the nutmeg, a little goes a long way, and this is true of all of your essential oils. So I'm going to be using just 2 drops of Nutmeg Vitality. That's it. It's a really, really good one. Okay, so just 2 drops. Here we go. 1, 2. Okay. So now I'm going to whisk these guys together. When you are cooking with essential oils or using some sort of a vitality oil, again, a little goes a long way. You do not need to go overboard with it. Go real easy. Trust your gut. Trust how you're feeling when you're baking with it. Note that when you are baking, it's going to lose some of its therapeutic value because of the heat that's being applied. In this case, we're using it for the flavor. Okay, so that's what's going to remain. There we go. There we go. So nice and mixed. Another good thing to note is that notice that I'm using a glass bowl and I'm using a metal whisk. Okay, so by using these tools, I'm avoiding using plastic. Better for me not to use plastic so nothing breaks down. Okay. There we go. Awesome. We've got that there. Then I'm going to add in my pineapple and my carrots and my zucchini. So that's going to finish off my liquid set. Okay. So for my pineapple, it's another 3/4. So I'm doing another 3/4 cup of crushed pineapple. I went ahead and crushed my pineapple in my food processor. I have the diced pineapple. You can buy crushed pineapple straight up as well. When you are buying your pineapple, if you're buying it in a can, make sure to get it so that it's in 100% fruit juice and not in syrup. Because that syrup, again, is just extra sugar. And the whole purpose of this is, one, to avoid those extra sugars that are going to weigh us down. We want to make this as healthy as possible. There we go. There we go. So there's 1. 2, and to do it? Yep. Good. So that's going to make it the 3. So there is our 3/4 cup of crushed pineapple. Whisk that in as well. There we go. All right. So now we have all of these mixed up. Now it's time for our carrots and zucchini. So it's going to go in on this end of the process, and then we'll add in all of our dry items. So I already have, like I mentioned before, my shredded carrots. If you want to have your carrots grated, you can grate them at home yourself, or you can purchase them shredded and then just cut them up. Okay. These are actually grated pretty well. These aren't too bad. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure it out and put it straight into our container. So for this, I'm going to use it 1.5 cups. So I use a dry measure when I'm measuring out my carrots and my zucchini. So that way it keeps the measurement consistent. There we go. There we go. So there's about 1 cup. There we go, and 1/2. Awesome. So that's 1.5 cups of my carrots. And now if you're wanting to add in nuts to this process, you can. And this would be the time that you would do it. You'd want to add in nuts here. So since I want to make this into a more hearty muffin, I'm going to add in some walnuts. You can also add in pecans if you'd like, but I feel like walnuts is a really great match for the chilled walnuts. Taste amazing. You can also toast them if you want to have a little bit of an extra flavor to it. And in this case, we're going to use about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of walnuts. So whatever works best for you. So in this case, let's just go ahead and use 1/4 cup. There we go. There we go. Cool thing about walnuts is that they're actually pretty soft and malleable, so you can either break them up with the back of a spoon or literally break them in your hands. So if you've got some rage to work out, here you go. Good. All right. And I want to make sure that I don't have pieces that are too huge, but even if I do, because they are so soft, it'll work out just fine. If I was using something like hazelnuts or almonds, then I really would want to make sure to have them really nicely broken up ahead of time. There we go. We've got a few more for extra good measure. Boom. All right. Mix that on in as well. Okay, so again, if you prefer for your carrot pieces to be smaller, go for it. Chop them up on your board and then add them in, or just take them off straight on in and you're good to go. Last part is, of course, zucchini. So with the carrots, they're really high in vitamin A, which of course is amazing for your eyes. And zucchini as a squash, it's a great green vegetable. It's high in multiple vitamins and minerals. And so when we add it into the mix, again, it's getting that fruit of the pineapple and the veggie with the carrots and the zucchini. It's a really, really great way to just get all those together in one flail swoop. So I've got my salad shooter. Let me make sure I've got it flipped in here and we will be good to go. As I mentioned before, when we're using something like a grater or salad shooter, whatever the case is, it's just going to make the process easier. If you're wanting to start to cook and bake more, I highly would encourage you to make the investment in the right tools. So the same way, from a wellness standpoint, if we're wanting to change the ways that we're taking care of our bodies, we want to make sure you're investing in the best quality. So that's the reason why we use Vitality oils. It's the reason why we use different organic ingredients, because we want to do best by our bodies. Same goes for our equipment. Good equipment is going to last you a long, long time. So let's go ahead and grate up our zucchini. And instead of putting it straight into the container, I'm going to do it into this guy. There we go. Cool. All right. Awesome. Okay, so now I have all of this grated zucchini. I'm going to measure out the amount that I need, and honestly, anything that's left over, these are amazing in omelets. You can use them if you make up salads. You can add them as a nice little garnish to your salad. If you want to have it as an addition to your pasta, I've done that before and added it to my pasta in terms of my pasta sauce. Really, really sneaky way to cook it in. If you do a meat sauce or a tomato sauce, and there it is. It's like a pasta primavera, ready to go. So here's our zucchini. That's one. And I'm looking for a half. Okay, and a half. Boom, done. So now I'm going to mix that all in. Yes, good, good, good. So now that we have all of these ingredients mixed in, this is our wet, and now we switch over to the dry. So our dry ingredients are going to be straight, quick, and easy. So in our dry ingredients we have here, we have 3/4 cups of baking soda, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and then a teaspoon and a half of baking powder. So all of that is here, ready to go. I'm not going to mix it into this just yet. I'm going to make sure to have my baking flour also ready to go into my mix. Okay, so I'm going to make sure to set that off to the side. Now for the flour, we're using gluten-free flour. You can use King Arthur, you can use Bob Red Mill. If you blend your own gluten-free flour, go for it, use it. Just make sure whatever you're using has xanthan gum in it or something to help it with the rise. So that way when you're mixing all of these wonderful ingredients together, you're not going to end up with flat muffins. That's not good. Okay? So we're going to use 3 cups of flour. There we go. And a quick hack, if you're wanting to figure out a way to measure your flour, it's always a good idea to have either some sort of way to flatten the top of your measure, so that way when you're scooping it in, it's going to go in and it's not going to be mounded over the top and it's not going to be scooped under, okay? So I'm going to do this one at a time. There's 1, there's 2, and here's 3. Okay, so I've got those in. Then the next part is going to be the baking soda and the baking powder and the salt. Remember we said to use aluminum-free baking powder because it's going to be better for your system overall. So I'm going to just sprinkle that all on top of these guys. I'm going to sprinkle it on top of the mounds so that way it helps with the mix-in. Okay, so it'll combine nicely. And then I also have cinnamon. Cinnamon is super key. So here's my cinnamon. You want to make sure you're getting good ground cinnamon. So that way it is just, again, it's really, really healthful, not herb, but it's a very healthful tree bark. That's what you're using. You're using cinnamon bark. Okay. When you're looking at things like cinnamon bark vitality, there is a vitality oil, cinnamon bark. It is good. In this case, it would be preferred to do the nutmeg vitality with the ground cinnamon versus another combination of both of them. This way it helps with the texture because there's enough of it in your mix that you don't want to just simply substitute it with an oil. Okay, so the same way, for example, if you're making a a lemon drink or a lemon pie, if you still have a significant amount of lemon juice, keep that in there. Just add some lemon vitality to it, and that'll help to enhance the flavor. Okay, so it's not that it always is a deadpan substitute, but it adds to enhance. Okay, so that's why we're using a 1 3/4 teaspoons of cinnamon. There we go. That's 1, 2. Okay. And 1 should do it. There we go. Awesome. So that's going to be our 1 3/4 teaspoons of cinnamon. Cool. So now we have all of our ingredients together in the bowl, and now we can whisk them together. It is going to be thick, and that's a good thing because, again, we're making muffins. If at some point it becomes difficult to stir, move to a wooden spoon. Wooden spoon. Don't move to a rubber spatula or silicone spatula, because remember, we have our vitality oil in here, and just to be on the safe side. Okay. Go. Alright. Now, looking at this consistency wise, I can tell that we're wanting to add in some oil. It's important to have that oil in there to help with everything binding together, to give it moisture for the muffin. So we're going to be using coconut oil. You can also use sunflower oil. That's another great option. If you're in a super pinch, you can use vegetable oil, but we want to make sure to try to keep things as healthful as possible. But again, do what you got to do. Start somewhere. Okay. So for this, we're going to use 1/2 cup of coconut oil. And when I'm using coconut oil, typically it does not pour out, but like I said, it's really hot. So it's just going to be already pre-melted. There it is. Boom. Good. All right. In it goes. Oh my gosh. So, slight side note, when it comes to baking during the summertime, I typically do it in the evening when it's cooled off. But because I want to make sure that you have this available and good to go so you can get your meal prep Sunday on, we do it at this time. Plus, it keeps it consistent. So, as we're mixing this in, here it is. I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to bake these because my people enjoy some zucchini carrot muffins. So we'll just have to put up with the heat for a little bit. It'll be okay. But when you're making this batch, start it off. I'd love to hear what you think once we put it in our tins here and get them baked up and everybody gets to enjoy them. Something we enjoy doing when we have all the ingredients in double is we'll make a double batch and then we'll bake the muffins and then freeze some so that, again, they're available for later. They're really great just to take them out of the freezer, let them sit in the fridge, and that way they're ready for the next day to take off to school or wherever. If you want to keep them in the fridge, you can. Just know that they'll be good in there for about a week, week and a half, versus in the freezer, you can keep them for a couple of months. All right. Good deal. Everything's ready. All right. So great consistency. You can see that. There it is. Oh, I love the way it smells. It always smells amazing. I tell folks, if you enjoy a good carrot cake, you will probably enjoy these muffins. They're really good. All right. So now the time of setup. So I'm going to move all my crazy tools out of the way. Let's go ahead and move these guys on in. Hey, hey. So with your muffin pan, move this all the way. Okay, with your muffin pan, you can either lightly grease each of these containers. You would use the coconut oil or whatever oil it was that you were mixing into your recipe. So if you use coconut oil, line it with coconut oil. All it is just take a little bit in your fingers, on your hands, just go around the sides and on the bottom, and works perfectly fine. If you want to use cupcake liners, that is another great option. Just know up front that when you're using cupcake liners, you want to wait until the muffins are completely cool before you attempt to take them out, because if not, they'll crumble and they'll stick to the sides, okay? So I'm gonna do a set of these with the liners and a set without, so you can see the difference between the two, okay? So I've got my liners. 1, 2, 3, good. And this recipe will make about 12 to 15 muffins depending on how big you want them. Okay. Good, yep. Okay, so those are my 6 there. So those are going to be the 6 with. And then for the 6 that are without, like I said, I'm going to use whatever oil I cooked with or I'm baking with and put that into each of these tins. Let me not stick my hand in here. Hold up. Alright, so I'm just going to take a little dab and put in each one. Not a whole lot, maybe an 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon. It really doesn't take a whole lot, guys, because remember, there's already oil in the recipe itself. There's already oil in the muffin mix. Put that there. And then I'm just going to move it around. So move it around the sides as well as the bottom, and that'll prevent it from sticking to the sides of the tin. So the plus side of that is that you're going to get just a nicely full-on shaped muffin, ready to rock, ready to go. The downside, of course, is that with the cleanup, it's going to be a lot easier if you're using the cupcake liners. But whatever way you do it, you're going to end up with some great muffins, so it's all good. Good. All right, there it is. Boom. Awesome. So now we start to scoop. All right. So when you're filling up your different containers with the muffins, you want to go to about 3/4 full on each one. That way you can ensure that you have even levels of muffins for each little pocket. And for this recipe, once it's all said and done, I think you'll find that you'll have a new favorite. Because the pineapple really helps to send it over the edge. It's a really, really great flavor. Okay. Ooh. That one's going to be really super full and really happy and big. What I love the most about this is that we're wanting to find ways to encourage our kids to enjoy their fruits and their veggies, or really to enjoy their veggies. So if you have someone who is a picky veggie eater, this might be a good one to try with having them to get a little bit of sneaky greens in. We're all about sneaky greens. And zucchini definitely lends itself to that. Same thing with carrots. That's a really sneaky vegetable. Not only in things like muffins and pasta sauces, and heck, you can even incorporate it really sneaky if you're good into some mac and cheese. But you can also incorporate them into smoothies as well. It's pretty cool stuff. All right. So looking at my mix, I am pleasantly surprised that I ended up making more than my 12, which is always good. So that means that once this is all said and done, I'm going to end up with closer to that 15, low 18 mark. Good, good, good. And as always, I'm going to make sure to post the recipe on here so you have all the measurements laid out for you. So you can watch this on replay, send it to a friend, share it with family, especially someone who's wanting to switch over to a healthier way of cooking and eating. And they'll be able to duplicate the same. And when all else fails, if you're having issues with finding the event, all of these will be on YouTube. So I'll make sure to do a quick post so you see that. I think you'll be able to pull this lovely recipe on YouTube, no problem. So, oh, so good, you guys. There it is. So there are our zucchini carrot muffins ready to bake. So I'm going to throw it in the oven here. It's going to go in at 350 degrees. We're going to do them for about 25 minutes. What that 25 minutes means, for those of you who are new to baking, you're going to set your oven to 350. It's going to take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to heat up to 350. So keep that in mind. That's the reason why it says to preheat. So you set your temperature first, go off and do your baking or do your equipping and mixing so that when you go over to actually put your items in, it's already hot and ready to go. So we go ahead, we preheat. I didn't do that because it's way too hot right now. But we go ahead, we preheat, give it the 5 to 10 minutes. Once we set these in, we said baking for 25 minutes. What that means when we say baking for 25 minutes is put it in the oven, let it sit for about 12 to 13 minutes, so think halfway, and you're going to open the oven, rotate it around, because you'll find that in most ovens, unless it's a convection oven, you're not going to have even heating inside the oven. So by rotating your muffin tin around or rotating your cake pan around or rotating whatever it is you have in the oven around, you're going to help that baking process to be more even. Okay, so preheat to 350, give it 5 to 10 minutes. For these muffins, you're going to pop them in so that they're going to be baking at 350. 12 minutes in, you're going to rotate it around, close the oven door, and bake it for another 12 to 13 minutes. Okay, so that's what we're off to do. So I hope this was a helpful video for you. If there are other recipes that you'd be interested in seeing, whether it's from a dinner meal prep standpoint, we're gonna have a smoothies one coming up really, really soon, and I'm really excited to check out the new Vitality oils that got released this month. So you'll be seeing some fun stuff with that for next month. But if there are any other recipes that just strike your fancy and you'd love to see more on and a walkthrough step by step, be happy to do it. Be sure to give it in the comments below, or you can message me directly, and you can reach me at Simply Epic on Instagram as well as on Facebook. So Simply Epic, it's one word together and it's 2 P's. So Simply, SIMPLY, Epic, EPPIC. Right, have a great week, you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.